Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Maio. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, David. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. School has started. Kids are back into school, and nice, pretty smooth opening from everything I heard. So,
And we're taping this on the very last day of summer.
Very last day. It doesn't feel like the last day of summer today.
No.
No.
No. But tomorrow, we're into fall already.
Okay.
So, and we're already seeing it by how dark it's getting, how early.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk this month about the new Memorial High School. And just a little background, the studio we're in is in the current high school. We're in what was the auto shop at one time.
I think we're sitting right on top of where the lift was.
Yeah, the lift was
probably right there.
Right over there. We just filled it in with cement, and that was it. But it has become apparent for some time now that the additions that were made. This was originally the junior high,
correct,
which was built in 1959, I believe. And after the Atwell building was destroyed 50 years ago, the answer to that problem was to build around the junior high and create the high school.
Correct.
And building that addition doesn't seem to have aged very well.
No, I think that the strongest and best conditioned part of this building is actually the original part, the core from 1959.
Yeah, because the core itself is still pretty solid.
Yeah,
but something needs to be done, and there have been several suggestions along the way of taking down the additions from 1976 and then using the original core. There have been other suggestions about putting it in the current ball field. Where are we at on siting at this stage?
Right. So the siting issue has actually been decided and determined, as I'm sure you know. But I think to take a step back, there were a lot of renditions that not only should we go through as a community, but that the School Business Authority, the state, requires you to go through. Mm-hmm. So we did do that due diligence over the last year, I guess. And, we looked at renovating the existing high school. Okay, we looked at an addition knockdown / renovation. We looked at a complete knockdown and building on the current site, current location. And we looked at a knockdown and building what would be behind us at the Beasley Field, and then recreating the Beasley Field in front of the building, more towards Farm Street, and then having the new school. So you go through all those different scenarios, and within each scenario there are subsets of scenarios, and there's a permanent building committee that is created by charter with the town, and they go through all of these different scenarios, and they fell on, with a lot of input from open meetings and from the school department and school administration, school committee, on a building of a completely new school behind, kind of, if you're looking at Farm Street and the existing structure behind us, on what is the track kind of behind us, so the people at home.
What most know is Beasley Field.
Beasley Field or Beasley Track. Beasley Oval, I guess, is really what people really. And it was not a, they went through all of these scenarios, and it ended up being not only this particular decision would provide the best academic complex for the children, the new school, but it also ends up actually being basically the most cost effective, because when you are adding to an existing building, there's a lot of issues that you don't know about, you may not find, and knocking down the building and building in the location we're in now, you know, there's a lot of issues there because the biggest is where do you house the students
Right.
during that period? You have
Right.
swing space, which would be millions of dollars when you go through the process. So
Well, and that's the
yeah.
problem that was faced at the high school when the Atwell building was lost.
Exactly.
And they went through a number of years of double
Yep.
sessions.
Yep.
You know, the juniors and the seniors went, you know, in the morning, and the freshmen and sophomores in the afternoon for, what, about 4 years?
yeah, you know, so you look at an addition renovation on the existing site, you know, to be around 218 million, you know, and for a brand new school, around 225. And that was very preliminary numbers. So really, there wasn't a big difference. Excuse me. So that's really where we came to moving it back. Or where, you know, the town came to that.
Now, why moving it back as opposed to taking the baseball field cross
Well, I
Hemlock?
think that there's more room on this site when you look at contiguous to the, to Farm Street. Going the ball field route, not only is it a little bit smaller and narrower, but you also have some more significant drainage issues. There are drainage lines that come through there. So that was another option that was looked at, so that didn't pan out either.
Right, right. Now, won't that also require taking some of the land that the parking lot is on, going up the hill towards the football
No, that will
field?
stay.
That will stay?
That will not go that far up there.
So there is enough space
Yes.
behind where the school is now to-
Exactly. That parking lot may even get a little bit expanded to provide some more parking, so.
Okay, okay. But then Beasley Field will be lost during the construction phase.
There will be a time period where, yes, Beasley Field will not be able to
Yeah.
be used.
So we've gone through a series of steps, beginning in April 2019, which was the statement of interest
Right.
to the MSBA, and that in itself was somewhat of a lengthy process.
Well, it's probably about this thick, you know, single space typed.
Yep.
You know, for those of us that can still visualize this thick, right? You know, that aren't just in the digital age. And we actually applied a number of times, and you apply to get invited into the program. And that is a lot of looking at the facilities, looking at the curriculum, looking at the staffing, look at the enrollment, how do you plan how that building can service all of that. But there's also site visits and looking at the condition of the building. And as dire as we felt the building was, and we had some dire issues that need to be addressed. I remember talking to the executive director back in, what was it, 2000, when we get invited in again? 2019?
The statement of interest was April 9, 2019.
2019.
Yep.
You know, we were trying to go for this in 2014, 2015.
Yep.
And I remember 2016, I remember the, Jack McCarthy, the executive director of the SBA, saying to me, Steve, we're just not that bad here. We've got some schools right around us that really are, you know, sinking into the ground and have all sorts of problems. So,
Including up the hill here.
including up the hill.
Yeah.
So we had to wait our turn a little
Yep.
bit because the SBA only has so much money, and that's the School Business Authority for us that know the acronyms and use them. Sorry about that. So, but that's a long process, and the state actually comes out, does site visits, and then you go in and they kind of grill you in front of them about your application and everything. But you got to be on your toes, and you got to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and we did, and got in there finally. So it was a big day.
So since then, now that we're considered eligible, December 2020 was the feasibility study,
Yep.
and followed by the, 3 months later, by the feasibility study agreement.
Yep.
Owner project manager procured. For people new to the community, what's the owner project manager
Well,
about?
in Massachusetts now, in state law, any project, public project that is costing more than a certain dollar amount, and I forget what that dollar amount is, but we're way over that in anything that we do. requires a owner's project manager, and it's kind of the old clerk of the works
Yep.
kind of thought. So it is someone who is the owner's representative on site, who works directly with the architect and the contractor. Because let's face it, we've got a lot of expertise in the town of Wakefield, a lot of wonderful department heads, great people at the school department that know curriculum and how a classroom should be set up and what they need. We had a great DPW director, but we don't have a person who knows the itty-gritty of construction and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
And that's what the owner's project manager does, really representing us as if you were putting an addition on your house. If you were there every day looking at every nail being put in,
Right.
that's what the owner's project manager is doing.
Right.
And they also making sure the construction documents comply with state law.
Mm-hmm.
We go to bid correctly. They do a lot of that work for us as well. And it's required that you get it.
And I guess May of 2021, the town appointed Left Field.
Left Field Construction, that's the name of the company. It's a lot of the same, and this again is a public process.
Yeah.
Public bidding process, and
Yeah.
people make presentations, or companies do. It's a lot of the same members of the company that, and I think was called Jocelyn Lesser before, that handled the Galvin. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of the same, key players there that went out to another company. We were very comfortable with how they handled the Galvin. Galvin came in on time, under budget.
Yeah.
And so, that was probably a big factor in why the permanent building picked them. And so that company, really led by Lynn Stapleton, is handling the project for us here.
It's nice to have some continuity from
It
one
really
project
is.
to
It
the
really
other.
is. It really is.
And then last summer, August 2021, the designer was chosen.
Right.
A firm well-known in this area, Sims Maney McKee
Yeah.
Associates, which is...
And that is really a very exciting process to go through because, this is the architect, the designer, the architect
Right.
of the new school.
Right.
And at that point, the decision where to go hasn't been made, and some different firms, and I think there were maybe 7 or 8 that
Right.
actually submitted their vision, their design, for different, whether it's a knockdown, an ad reno, or what have you,
Right.
for the project, and seeing what some of the different companies came up with really is a lot of fun.
Some of the different concepts.
Different concepts,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
they're looking at a central learning commons area, or the cafeteria, how that's going to work. Juxtaposing to other departments. You want to have your art department in this area where there's the sunlight and glass and everything. So it really is fascinating to go through that. For someone who, personally, who doesn't have that vision, that part of my brain isn't working, it doesn't work well, it's great to see. So that, SMMA had done a number of, schools and communities that, in the Boston area, and they were really very, very impressive. As were other companies too.
Right, right.
Those aren't easy decisions for the permanent building committee to make. So they've been on board, and they've designed what I think is, a pretty good, very good, excellent potential school.
They're working right now on the schematic design.
Yes.
Which is basically the overall
Right.
pattern of where the rooms are going to be and
Where the
things like
rooms are going to
that.
be, and the flow of the school. How is what's the facade going to look like?
Right.
What have you? The school will be designed to be green, to really reduce any, if having any carbon footprint at all, have a
Right.
very reduced one, if at all. And this will probably be a net zero school at the end of the day, which is nice.
Not dissimilar to what's happening up at the hill with the new vote
Very,
design.
very similar. In fact, the architects for the vocational school also bid on this school. And they gave a very compelling presentation as well. So those two firms are working in harmony, which is very nice.
Well, and it's going to be interesting because if this stays on track the way it seems to be, we may have two major building projects going on simultaneously in this
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, we will, however, vocational schools should be a year or so, maybe, earlier than us. So if they put in their access road further up Farm Street, then this Hemlock area won't have two sets of construction vehicles on it,
Right.
which will be important.
Yeah, because right now it's pretty tough to
Right.
get down this street when both schools let out
Right.
15 minutes apart.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a traffic nightmare. Will this, there's long been discussion at town meeting over the years about traffic lights
Yeah.
at Hemlock Road and Farm Street. Is this something that's possible with this new design? or-
I think there will definitely be some sort of traffic calming at that area. We are looking at a better alignment of that entire Nahant Farm Hemlock intersection.
Right.
Because it really kind of doesn't line up well. So that's being looked at. Whether it's a light or some sort of a roundabout sort of area is yet to be remained, but those
Right.
plans are those options are going forward to the Traffic Advisory Committee to look at that, as they are for the vocational school a little bit further up Farm Street. So
Right,
the
because
whole area-
potentially with
right.
the two roads, you can have a different sort of
Right.
congestion
Right.
on Farm Street itself.
I think at the end of the day, when the whole project both projects are built, you're going to see a much calmer and safer traffic flow through the entire corridor, which is our goal. And it's not just car traffic. It is pedestrian and bike traffic
Right.
that we're much more sensitive to than we were years ago. So that's a big part of this. So those are decisions that are getting closer, but they're coming down the road.
Right. When do we think we'll be seeing this in town meeting?
Well, as of now, the path that we're on is to have the schematic design approved by the state, and it has to be approved by the state, and we have, many, many millions of reasons to make sure the state approves this, which in the case of reimbursement. The town is scheduled to be in front of them, in front of the state board, and it's either December 21st, I think it's December 21st. If that state meeting goes well, as we hope it will, and the schematic design is approved, which, as you mentioned, is, kind of the real outline of what it's going to be.
Right.
You may have some rooms flip from a math room to a science room, or from a science room to a special education room, during the process. It was basically the layout and the structure, traffic flow was all
Right.
set. If that approval does come through on December 21st, the town council will then be asked to set up a special town meeting where the town will vote to go forward with the project via a via a bond issue, which is borrowing, and then via a 2.5 debt exclusion. So the funding of this would be outside of the 2.5 tax levy. It's really the only way to do it.
Right. And, well, not dissimilar, I don't think, if I recall correctly, with the vocational school.
Vocational school was a separate vote on that item. However, the vocational school, I don't think for any of the communities, did not require because there's 12 communities. So Wakefield can pay for its share within the tax levy.
Oh, it can?
Yeah,
Okay.
so there was no debt exclusion for that one. They did have to have a regular election because of the mechanism of how you fund vocational schools, but there was not a debt exclusion. So if successful at town meeting, we will then have to hold a special election sometime at the end of, and I think town meeting will sometime towards the end of January, and the special election will be sometime during the end of February, beginning of March, somewhere in there.
Next year.
Next year of 2023.
So we're
Exactly.
really moving fairly quickly on
Oh, yeah.
this.
Yeah, it does feel now it feels quickly, but when you think about the years that we were putting in the
Well, yes, it started 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
but-
So here we are, where we're getting on the closing line.
And it's been discussed for many years before that.
Yeah.
You know, primarily because of the additions that were made in very short order.
Right. And really the additions that were made in the mid to late 70s had to be done quickly because
Right.
of the horrible fire that occurred down on Main Street.
I remember that.
Yep.
I remember that. I was halfway through senior year that year.
So you had double sessions?
Had double sessions
Yeah.
for this 5 months of 1972,
Yeah.
and then was done with that, and it was up to the kids following,
Yeah.
so who had to deal with it for years.
Yeah. Really? Yeah, for a while.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was halfway through my senior year. Hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah.
But what other aspects of this project can the town look forward to that may or may not impact the town?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that are happening with the new school. It is going to be very green.
Mm-hmm.
So the school will be completely electric.
Mm-hmm.
It will not be gas or oil like most of your schools are. It will have solar panels on the roof, generating electricity, and we can talk about some storage where that's going to come, where that's going to be later. But it will have charging stations for cars, electric cars, and what have you. It'll have some great outdoor learning spaces. It will have some great opportunities to learn, about the environment and about energy and things like that. So those things are going to be really very, very cool. And in conjunction with vocational school, going a little bit up Hemlock Road, the Light Department will be sponsoring an article at town meeting in November about creating a battery storage park up on Hemlock Road past Landrigan Field on the right, where they will actually be, storing the electricity that is generated by both the vocational school and the Wakefield Memorial High School, and allowing that to be used as emergency power for the two buildings should anything happen. If there's a power outage or what have you. And so what really that helps both schools, that they won't need to have their own separate emergency generator. That'll be handled by this energy park. Really very, very, forward-cutting and better for the environment and all of those things. So that really is pretty cool here. Another thing that we can look forward to, and that's something that I know is very important to a lot of people, is that in the existing high school, there is the Savings Bank Theater, which a lot of people, I think, including the both of us, personally, invested in and helped out with getting that constructed. And it really is I think 250, 260 seat black box theater that has some wonderful smaller, more intimate shows put on than you would put in a big auditorium like we have at the Galvin.
But it's also been used for lectures. It's been used by the Human Rights Commission for events.
Absolutely fabulous use of
It's
that.
really a great town resource.
So that kind of black box theater is going to be replicated in the new school. Okay. Which was very important to a lot of people, that area for teaching and for the community was still available. And there will also be an auditorium that will be used for larger events and what have you. So I think that's kind of some stuff that's really, really very, very
Now that's interesting because we've had discussions in the past with the school, the SBA.
Yeah.
With regard to Galvin, because it was a middle school, they said, "What do you need an auditorium for?"
Yeah, that was quite an interesting battle that I had with them over there.
So did this become another battle, or because it's a high school?
Not yet, but the high school, I think they're not as hasn't hit their radar at this point.
Okay.
Anyway. But it will be interesting.
So something yet to come.
Right. It's yet to come. I think the other thing that you can look at is the new building will be much more accessible
Yeah,
for all. I mean, the existing building, where it was built, 1959.
Right.
For the core, 70s, the add-on, the additions and what have you, it's not as conducive to those that maybe need a little bit more help getting around.
right. It was pretty handicapped design, yeah.
Then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
new one will. So that's really pretty interesting. I think the other thing is that what we've learned now as we go forward in the 20 years now, almost 20 years into the next century, right? Is that being more pedestrian and bike friendly
Yeah.
is a big issue, and this school will be those things. The campus will be those things.
Yeah.
We have work to do getting to the campus, and we're working on that as a community, but the
Right.
campus itself will be much more conducive to that.
Right.
And I think the other thing is that connections to nature and the outdoors and that outdoor learning aspect, which was maybe kind of poo-pooed back in our day, at least for high school it was, you're going to see a lot more of that and that availability in the new school. So I think it's going to be a really interesting and fun campus and really conducive to learning.
Plus you have Breakheart up at the top of
And
the
you have
hill,
Breakheart,
which is
you've got
great
some
for
wonderful-
cross-country running and things like that.
Wonderful vistas
Yep,
around there.
yep.
So I
Yep.
think that it's going to be a really pretty cool, I use the word cool, but I think it's a great architectural plan, and I think it's really going to, work nicely with the community, so.
It's going to be interesting to see what plan is finally presented to the
Presented,
town. For anyone out there watching who would like to keep up to date on information, there's a website on the town website, wakefieldmhsproject.com. And highly recommend, if you want to stay up to date on what's happening and what meetings are coming up,
Yeah.
that would be the place to go.
No, there really are a lot of great information on that website.
Yeah,
It's pretty robust already.
yeah, yeah. No, you don't have to go far to find what
Yeah.
you need,
Yeah.
which is really great, really great. So there's more to come on this. I'm
There's
sure we'll
more to
have
come.
other shows down the
You'll have
road.
other shows down the road, particularly one thing we haven't talked a lot about tonight at all is cost.
Right.
We really
Well,
don't.
it's too early to really
It's a little
nail
bit
it
too
down.
early, but
Yeah.
I will say that one of the issues that all of these school building projects, and all these projects in general, are running into is the fact that the cost of building for both materials, supplies, and labor per square foot is basically doubled
Yeah.
from where it was, even when we built the Galvin, which opened in 2014.
Right.
So that's a big jump. Some areas, some components of that have increased even by more.
Right.
And the school business authority still only reimburses up to a certain per square foot cost, which is around $360 a square foot. And, you're coming in at projects that are now over $700 a square foot to build. So that is a hurdle that is causing a little bit of agita for everybody who's building it. Now, I've talked to my good friends in Stoneham.
Right.
They're about a year and a half ahead of us, and they're running into this too. So, we have worked in, escalation numbers for this project, so we don't get caught, hopefully, in the future. But that is something that everyone should be thinking about as we go forward. Not to put, don't put a damper on it because it's, but it is something, it's a reality out there that we need to be aware of.
Well, and we'll be revisiting this
We will.
as the project commences.
Yes.
But, and we will come back to that around maybe the time when we have a special town meeting.
And exactly.
Fantastic.
And, on on Wednesday, the 28th, starting at 7 p.m. at the town council meeting, there will actually be a presentation from the Permanent Building Committee
Right.
on, to the town council on the school as well. They've had a number of forums, and if you couldn't make those forums, like David said, they're on the website.
Right.
So you can go and see the filming of them, and get yourself all up to speed on what's been happening. You
Fantastic.
can binge watch the forums.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Have a great night.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month.